Okay, thank you all very much for coming here this afternoon. I think everybody's aware of the issue here today and how important it is and how prevalent it is in schools and amongst our students. And I'm very happy to present Margie Daniels, who is the Executive Director of the Middlesex Youth Partnership. Middlesex Partners for Youth. Partnerships for Youth, and affiliated with the Middlesex County District Attorney's Office. So, and Margie is, although she is the Executive Director for the partnerships, she's also a former educator, special ed administrator, assistant superintendent, and so it's great to have you here. Margie, take over. You're welcome.
Thank you so much for inviting me here today. First of all, as Peter said, I'm the Executive Director of Middlesex Partnerships for Youth, which is the prevention and intervention arm of the Middlesex District Attorney's Office. And I'm sure the name Jerry Leone, our district attorney, is familiar to many of you. Jerry has a fabulous reputation and a very well-deserved reputation as the prosecutor's prosecutor. He's had so many successful prosecutions of very high-level cases in Middlesex County. But Jerry also has a very big heart for prevention and intervention, and it's because of him that we're actually here doing the types of presentations in schools that we're doing. As far as myself, as Peter said, I come out of public education. I worked for 35 years as a teacher, principal, special ed director, and finally as an assistant superintendent before I retired 3 years ago. I'm also a licensed independent clinical social worker and have about 20 years of experience, in that way too. So I bring a little bit of experience. I think the topic that we're talking about, bullying, and now its cousin, cyberbullying, is really a very, very difficult topic for schools to deal with for a variety of reasons. I don't want to stand up here and just talk to you. I hope that this will be more of a dialogue. A lot of you bring a lot of experiences with kids, and I really would like to get a sense of what's going on in Wilmington and what you're seeing. Because quite frankly, every place I go, I learn something new, and it helps me to develop my presentation and be able to give meaningful presentations to people. Last night I was in Bedford talking to parents, and I think that parents as partners in this bullying epidemic are extremely important. Just to give you straight up my 2 cents on it, I have a lot of respect for what you do as educators. You have a very difficult job in the school district. You are delivering instruction. You're also dealing with the social and emotional lives of kids. Unfortunately, a lot of what now is spilling into the schools isn't happening in the schools. It's happening in the evenings. It's happening on the weekends, on computers, on cell phones, instant messaging, texting, tweeting, etc. It's not going on where you can see it happening, but it's seeping into your life in school, and in a lot of cases really sapping a lot of time and energy and attention. It's a very serious problem that really affects the well-being of our kids, but we really have to work in partnership, particularly with parents who need to monitor their kids, and we also need to work with our students themselves in terms of them being bystanders and observers of what's going on, and we all need to really work together to get on top of what a lot of people are calling a real mental health epidemic. So as I say, I'm going to start my presentation, but please interrupt me. I really hope this will be more of a dialogue. I would love it if this would work, but I don't think it's going to. So we'll go on. It was just Jerry Leone talking about the relationship in the district attorney's office with Middlesex Partnerships for Youth, but for some reason when we practiced it didn't come up. So anyway, we're here to talk about bullying, which is a very, very serious problem all over the United States, and certainly the cyber piece has made matters much more difficult for a variety of reasons that we'll talk about in a few minutes. And this talks about what bullying is. I would suspect that every person in this room is well acquainted with bullying. Are all of you high school teachers, or are some of you from, are you from middle school and elementary?
Yes.
Awesome. Great. Well, I really hope then that you'll share and talk, and I'm particularly interested in what is going on at the elementary levels, because it just seems that so many of the problems that first were high school problems that went into our middle schools are now certainly affecting at least the upper levels of our elementary schools. So bullying has to do with unequal power. It's repetitive. It's not a one-time activity for sure. And it can be verbal, it can be written, it can be electronic, and it certainly is intentional. And I think the intentionality is an extremely important aspect of bullying. We're going to talk about 9 ways. This is coming from a questionnaire about bullying and highlighting 9 different ways to bully. The first one is verbal bullying, which includes derogatory comments and bad names. Secondly, we talk about bullying through social exclusion or isolation. Any of you seen that? That, I think, is a very, very difficult part of bullying to really get on top of and control. And it is very prevalent. It can be hitting, kicking, shoving, spitting. Those are the things, in my opinion, that are more easily controlled because you can recognize them more easily and you can step in and intervene. Some things like the exclusion, like the rumors, that type of thing are much more under the surface, under the radar. Bullying can be done through lies and false rumors. Anyone have any experience with any of this? Yes? Okay, I hope some of you will share some stories about these things. It can be having money or other things taken from you or damaged by other students who are bullies. It can be being threatened or forced to do things by students who bully. Racial. I don't know how much of it you've seen here in Wilmington. Sexual. And then, of course, the cyberbullying, which seems to be the predominant area right now that people are talking about. Why do you think cyber has become such an issue? I gotta get you guys talking.
Parent anonymity.
The anonymity is very important. What else?
No eye contact.
No eye contact, huge. I'm going to play a video in a minute about that. No eye contact is very, very big. Other thoughts?
Easy and accessible.
Say it a little louder.
Accessible, it's easy.
Yeah,
Easier to do.
very accessible.
It's what they know.
Mm-hmm.
It's how they communicate now.
And where they play, so to speak.
Someone is less likely to intervene.
Yeah.
Kids used to be able to go home and feel safe and get away from bullying in school, and now they can't.
Mhm. Good point. Do we need people, I know you're filming this, do we need people to speak louder for the camera, or are you able to pick this up?
That's fine.
Great, good, because I think the things that the audience is saying are extremely important. Bullying can be due to being in a certain identity-based group. It could be race, religion, national origin, gender identity, sexual orientation, or disability. You can see a child who is in a wheelchair. It can also be because of friends, social status, neighborhood, or appearance, and these are universal characteristics. And I put something in here about Kick a Ginger Day. Was anyone aware of Kick a Ginger Day here? You are. I'm not making this up because people look at me sometimes like, yeah, right. This was on Facebook, and it was a campaign to kick redheaded people on a certain day. Yeah, some people look at this. Nearly 5,000 people joined, and it came from a South Park episode. I don't watch South Park, so I'm not sure what exactly inspired this, but there were supposedly ginger attacks all over the country and in Canada. So I also have heard, but I haven't been able to document this, that there was a Kick a Freshman Day. I don't know if anyone has heard that. It seems to be less well known. But anyway, these are examples of really blatant meanness that go on the internet.
It's funny that you just mentioned the South Park episode because I had a student in the 6th grade today with a T-shirt on with actually somebody who looked like that person in the picture, and it said "Bloody Emo Kids." Emo is a term for kids who are emotionally disturbed, but it's a T-shirt marketed by Family Guy, which is another very popular show with the kids. So they're hearing and they're seeing lots of okay things on TV that they could try at school or online.
Good point. Good point. There's certainly a lot in the media, in songs that the kids listen to, that promote and normalize this type of very negative behavior.
When was that? That Ginger Day? Yeah. Okay. Within a year, 2
Yes.
years?
Oh, yeah.
Within the past year?
Yeah.
It's been 2 months, I would say.
I think so too.
6 to 8 weeks.
Where did you hear about it?
on the radio, I heard about it. But I know it was on Facebook, that's how all the kids came out.
I almost want to say I heard it on national TV and then went on the internet and did a little bit of exploration about it. And then there was another campaign run on Facebook that was an anti-Kick-a-Ginger Day. And unfortunately, that only had a few hundred people join, where you had 5,000 people joining the Kick-a-Ginger. So just the whole idea of it, though, is certainly disturbing. Anyway, bullies have changed. Back in my day, I went to school in the 50s. We had bullies. They tended to be the big kid on the playground. Maybe he was a little bit of an isolated child. He might have kicked you, pushed you, this type of thing. And today, many of the bullies that plague our school districts and our communities are the popular kids. And that's when you really get into problems with your school climate. When kids then are vying to get in with the popular group, and one of the hallmarks of the popular group is that they're mean to other kids, and that if you want to be part of that group, you have to be mean too. So as I said, they're not always your isolated youngsters. They're not always seriously psychologically disturbed kids. They're not always the product of troubled homes. Sometimes the bullies see themselves as true victims, and there can be some kids who imagine slights where there really aren't any. A lot of what goes on with kids goes on as retaliation about things that have happened. And I don't know if you've had the experience of school staff as trying to unravel what's happened with certain incidents of bullying, but it can become very time-consuming and extremely difficult to figure out. I don't know, Peter, if you've had any experiences of that where you start to deal with kids to find out how it started. That can just become so entwined and convoluted that it's very difficult to figure out where it really began. Sure. Anyway, these are some of the things that can motivate bullying. I think personally that being in the in crowd can be one of your most difficult things to control. Many times your victims don't tell anyone. They may not want to be blamed. Often they don't want their equipment taken away. They don't want to go to their parent because they're afraid the parent will take the cell phone or their equipment away. And they can also be worried that their report won't be taken seriously. Some of the kids who are bullied may start to fear or avoid school. They can consider school to be an unsafe place. And I think, as all of you know, if you don't feel safe in school, it's very hard to concentrate on learning. They may become socially isolated. They may also become depressed. And the impact of bullying is certainly well documented. These are some of the things that happen as a result of kids being bullied, but the one at the end is by far the most serious, suicide. And I'm sorry to say, as some of you are probably well aware, that there have been some cases, and some right here in Massachusetts, where students have taken their own lives as a result of being bullied. This case is not brand new. This is the case of Megan Meyer. This got a lot of national attention. Some of you probably heard about this or read about this. In a nutshell, Megan Meyer had a neighbor down the street, and I don't know why the girls had a problem, but the girl down the street, in conjunction with her mother, and that's the amazing part of the story, is that the mother was part of this whole thing, made a fake MySpace page. They created a boy that did not exist, and the boy started to communicate with Megan, showed an interest in her. They were talking day in, day out, and suddenly the boy who didn't exist, turned on Megan, said some very nasty things, and she came home from school, 13-year-old, hung herself in a closet. So that was made a lot of news a little ways back. The mother, the neighbor mother, was, I believe, charged with some misdemeanors, and they were dismissed, I believe, on appeal. She had very little consequence to her for what happened, and I think there was a real national outrage about that. More recently in Springfield, Carl Joseph Walker Hoover. How many of you heard about this? He was at a charter school. He was a 6th grader. Allegedly, he was bullied just relentlessly at school. Hello, Joanne. Thank you for joining us, Joanne Betton. Nice to see you. More recently, and this has just received just horrendous publicity, a 15-year-old girl at South Hadley High School committed suicide. Probably there's a person in this room who isn't familiar with this case. And she, as I understood it, was dating a senior football player and started to get into some kind of beef with the popular girls who seemed to also be the very mean girls in this school district. And they taunted her, harassed her, called her an Irish slut, and it just kept it up, and she hung herself on January 14th. And this has really sent shock waves across Massachusetts. I'll talk a little more about that in a second. But anyway, there's a very, very good article by Kevin Cullen in the Globe after this, and really talked about the type of stalking and intimidation that went on for this girl, and what made her life so miserable that she finally couldn't stand the pain anymore and ended it. Very sad story. And after she died, as I understand it, some of the bullies mocked her on Facebook after she was gone. So it really turned into a very serious situation. I believe from what I've read more recently that the girls have been removed from school.
I thought it was only 2.
Maybe it was
I
2.
think I read 2 kids have been punished for it.
Yeah.
That they're still looking into other people that may have been involved.
They said a number of the people that were involved have moved out of town. They just couldn't take the harassment that was going on afterwards.
And I don't even think they said punished. I think they said the girls are no longer attending school.
Right.
But they don't know whether or not, it hasn't been made public whether or not that was the school's choice or the family's choice.
Are there? I know it's only 2, I think.
Yeah, it just.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting point.
Said the boyfriend's gone too.
Really? So anyway, we have the new twist to bullying, which is called cyberbullying. And I want to say very seriously, because I don't ever want anyone to feel that I'm anti-technology, that I think technology is a wonderful thing. You know, again, at my age, to see what we're able to do now with the click of the mouse just amazes me. You know, I used to have to go to the library if I wanted to do research on a certain topic. I was spending so much time in libraries, going into journals, looking things up. I can sit now in my own home, I can go on my computer, I can put a few words in Google, and lo and behold, 5, 10, 20, maybe 100 articles pop up. I have that information right at my fingertips. To me, that's like magical. I think that it's just so miraculous what we're able to do in this day and age. So I feel very positively about technology. It certainly is not going to go away whether I like it or don't like it, but I think technology is a wonderful thing. But unfortunately, there's a small group of students that use it in a negative way and use it in a manner that's very hurtful to other people. So just to talk about some features of cyberbullying: intentional harm inflicted through electronic media, misusing email, text messaging, instant messaging, chatting, and blogging for the purposes of bullying, harassing, and even inciting violence. And it's a growing problem that they're saying are affecting at least 50% of our youth. And I hate to get into statistics, because whenever I look at national statistics, quite frankly, I think they're often low for here. That's number one. Number two, it seems like as fast as we can get our hands on statistics, they're changing. But they're changing in a direction that more and more kids are using the internet every day. More and more kids have Facebook or MySpace pages, have social networking involvement. More and more kids have the kinds of cell phones that can do sophisticated things, and a majority of the bullying that goes on, according to research, goes on with instant messages and texting. That's the area that it's happening more than any other area. So as someone said, there's rapid transmission of information, the anonymous piece, posting false images. And are any of you familiar with the photoshopping program? Somebody can really do a lot of damage with photoshopping, because you're able to take someone's head and put it on another body. And there's been a lot of mischief that's been done through this type of program.
Today I'm going to talk about Patty. Patty's best characteristics: she's stupid. Stupid and ugly. Everything she does is ugly. Watch her eat. Watch her stuff her face. Look at her. Greasy hair, dirty fingernails. It makes me want to vomit. Get a life, Patty. Thank you.
what is cyberbullying? It can be spreading rumors and gossip, posting pictures without consent, obtaining a password to assume a person's identity. And you know, with a lot of the kids, they're not even like stealing somebody's password. The kids are really giving out passwords very freely. I don't know if you're aware of that, but that's one thing that goes on with the kids that leads to some of the anonymous mischief that happens. Harassing or threatening with mean or bad language. Anyway, it's easy to send text, it's easy to send videos or pictures. You don't see the victim, and it's anonymous. So those are some of the features of it. It happens through these various means. As I said, the text messaging and the instant messaging seem to be the medium of choice with most of the kids. Lots going on though on the social networking sites. How many of you yourself are on Facebook? I'm on Facebook. Okay. Is there anyone in this room, unless you teach very little kids, who doesn't have kids in your class that are on Facebook? If you had to guess in Wilmington, what percentage of the kids are on Facebook, what would you say? And by the high school age, by the high school age. 99, yeah. See, that's what I think. And when I read statistics like 57% of kids are on social, you know, I'm thinking to myself, not in our area, not in Middlesex County.
I have a couple, I teach 4th and 5th grade. I have like 4th graders that are on Facebook.
4th graders, yeah.
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 Which appalls me.
Yeah. I have another question while we're on the subject, and I'm asking this especially of the elementary folks. How many of your kids have cell phones?
Oh, kids don't come to school.
So what age are the kids starting with cell phones?
As early as 4th grade.
About 4th grade.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that I talk about cell phones is because, as you well know, cell phones aren't just to talk on. The cell phones now have a lot of fairly sophisticated capabilities that kids probably know how to use far better than most of us. Anyway, instant messaging is very frequently used. Also, there's many games that also have a capacity to do instant messaging. I was watching Good Morning America a few months ago, and a woman was on to talk about her 14-year-old daughter being abducted. She was missing and turned up in Puerto Rico. She had met a guy playing a game right in her family room. And the mom had no idea that the game had the capability of allowing interaction with someone out of her own home. And the woman came on and spoke on national TV to make sure that parents are aware of the interactive capabilities of a lot of our games that our kids are playing. So, you know, I always think of educators as people who also need to educate parents, particularly about the cyber world. And that's something that I'm not sure that a lot of parents necessarily understand that are very important. And even on Facebook, you have an instant messaging piece. Many of you are probably aware in the bottom right-hand corner, if someone's online, you're able to engage in conversation with them, live conversation right on the spot.
I have a daughter, she's 10, and she plays this Barbie fashion game, and I discovered that she can text other people during the game. So she's playing, she's like, choose clothes, whatever, and then she's like, I'm like, what are you writing to? And she's like, oh, this is the person that lives in somewhere in the world.
Somewhere in the world,
Yeah,
exactly.
So that they post pictures and everything, and they're like, man, it's a little childish game. And I looked, and there's a woman, she's probably 40-some, and I'm like, what is she doing in there? And she says, she likes to play the game. And I said, if you ever see somebody like 40 playing a child game, and if there's something wrong there. So I just wanted to tell her, you know, you have to be careful what you see. And I always tell her, obviously, don't trust anything they say, don't give them any information about you, but it's like a Barbie game.
That's
People-
amazing.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, I did not know that, but it doesn't surprise me. Any other examples? Anyone else have any other examples of that type of thing?
Well, my daughter was telling me that she has cousins who are in their 30s who have young children, and they have, you know, 5-year-olds who have Facebook accounts, and there's some game that they can play. I haven't looked at it, I don't know, but she said to me, why do they think that's a good idea to have someone's picture on, you know, on Facebook when they're 4 and 5 years old? and who are they interacting with? And I was really surprised that kids that young, there would be something available to them through Facebook. I mean, I haven't verified it, but that, you know.
Anyone have an answer to this? I'm not aware of anything either that is really
Well,
geared
I
to
can,
kids that young.
Yes, they're all, the younger kids are all, and the middle school kids are all into Farmville,
Oh,
which is
maybe
something
that's
that's
it.
easy to learn and easy to do. And some parents have told me that they just have their kid on Facebook so they can play games.
All right,
I've
so
heard
there's
that.
something there.
Would someone like to define Farmville?
Not really.
Does anyone know what The Sims are? Like that game? Yeah. Okay, picture it on a farm. That's basically what it is, I think.
So it's a virtual world, basically? It's a
Yeah,
virtual
like
world.
You add crops.
Yeah, you buy animals and you water things and,
Fertilize
yeah.
crops,
Yeah.
fertilization of crops, I know. So I was asked, you know, I go all over Middlesex County speaking, and somebody asked me a question, maybe you can answer it, Erica, because I couldn't. Someone said, is it possible to bully through Farmville?
yes.
And okay, and I wasn't sure, and I'm not on Farmville myself, so I contacted a couple of people, and I really haven't gotten any definition. So how could someone be bullied?
Well, because it's like on Facebook, you can, post messages to everything. So if something comes up and it says, I don't know, Johnny Jones bought a cow, you can, but Johnny Jones is a cow. Like, you can put anything up, and, you can put anything up there.
Yeah.
You can put signs on people's farms, so you
Yeah.
can say like, so-and-so is, a big fat idiot, like you could write things like that actually on their farm.
If they have access to your account.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of the younger ones, you were talking about 4, 5, 6. It's very interesting society-wise about the girls who were the mean girls who went on after the fact and mocked the young lady who committed suicide. But the younger children, society has created these opportunities even with Webkins.
Yeah.
To be able to communicate as young as, they get Webkins when they're 4, 5, and 6. And somebody could bully by going in and taking something off of that person, the Webkins room. So if you have shared your password with a friend, they can go in and be mean even as low as that age. So somebody's out there marketing to our kids. And it's starting so very early that it can't be avoided.
And possibly really indoctrinating kids that you have these rooms, everyone knows what a Webkin is, I assume, a little furry animal. So you have the room for the Webkin and you're inviting other Webkins in to visit, which I think can set up a mindset that leads you to a Facebook type of social networking existence.
Where do the parents come in on this, though? I mean, really, how many Webkins do you need to have? I mean, some kids have 40, 50 Webkins. When do the parents say, no, that's enough, no, you're too young to be going on the computer and interacting with, I mean, a child's 5, a parent is hopefully at least 20, saying to their child, oh, it's okay for you, honey. I mean, when did the word no become non-existent in a parental life?
Everyone's familiar, I'm assuming, with what sexting is, which is sending a nude image electronically. If the person is underage, which I believe is under 18, and someone disseminates it, dissemination of child pornography is a serious crime. It's a felony. It's punishable by up to 20 years in prison. You can be forced to register as a sex offender, which needless to say can affect you for a long period of time. Here in Middlesex County, particularly with things that are first offenses, I think the district attorney's stance is more to look at diversion or look at education and try not to severely punish someone who made a foolish mistake. But the dissemination of underage child porn is very, very serious. I'll give you a typical scenario that has happened. A girl consensually sends a naked picture of herself by her cell phone to her boyfriend, thinking that it's for his eyes only. 2 weeks later, they break up, and he decides to share the picture with 100 of his closest friends. And next thing you know, this picture has just become public and is all over the internet. And those types of things certainly have happened. Does anyone else want to make a comment? Yes. The woman in the blue sweater.
Oh, me, okay. I have a question. Thinking about this, and thinking about your daughter,
So this 40-year-old woman, says she's a 40-year-old woman, she could be a 60-year-old male, you know, and some of the 5-year-olds that she's playing with could be adults. And I'm wondering if the DA's office has considered kind of going at the cyberbullying via an internet safety kind of thing, because you're in chat rooms, so you tell your daughter, or anybody tells their daughter, don't give information to strangers. Well, they're not strangers, they're my friends. You know, like we've been talking online for however long, do you know what I mean? But if you get in through the internet safety thing and you eliminate some of the chats and the games and all the rest of that stuff where people don't have access to it, then you eliminate the bullying because they're not in those rooms, and it's also a whole safety thing. I mean, I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong.
No, I'm saying because
I mean,
technology's growing, I think, it's gonna be hard to eliminate, you know, Facebook or whatever.
Right, but there's so many parental controls
I
that
understand, but
parents
it's
can
like,
put on.
no, I think as a parent and as a teacher, I think that we need to give kids tools to make good choices, no matter what. So when she's playing a game or they're going on Facebook, they need to make a choice, that's it. I mean, respecting their friends, you know, when they see something, go tell somebody, this is not right. That's what I expect my kids to do. These are all the things that I have no control.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could not agree with you more about the need for parent education, and through the Middlesex District Attorney's Office, through Middlesex Partnerships for Youth, we're all around the county having seminars, having forums. We were on cable last night in Bedford talking to parents, but not all the parents are sitting there in the audience, and I cannot tell you how many of them necessarily are going to watch it on TV. And that's why so many times when I talk to school staffs, I really urge you to step up to the plate as much as you possibly can and educate parents about just the types of things that you're talking about now. Because yes, there is a danger factor on the internet. There was a case in a town not terribly far from here where a young girl was communicating with a guy on Facebook, and he took the train up to bring her back to Virginia. And very honestly, from what I understand, the only way that the family was able to intervene is they went on her Facebook account. They not only went on her Facebook account and read what was going on, they actually had a picture of the guy. And again, as I understand it, the police, literally with sirens blazing, went to the police station and got the guy as he came off the train, and he had 2 tickets. One for himself to go back to Virginia and one for her. That's not that far away from here where it happened. You know, those types of things are very, very scary. A lot of child predators are lurking on the internet day in, day out, and you just described so beautifully what they do, because they don't initially approach someone and say, you know, hey little girl, let's go to a motel and have sex. They have a conversation over a period of time, and a lot of these predators are very sly and cunning and really are good at what they do. And they may communicate day in, day out for 5 months, for 8 months, for a year, before they make any type of an overture to the person, who, again, young people can be very naive and also very unsuspecting and trusting of people. And the young person can feel like they really know this individual. They've been talking day and day. They're sure that they really know this person well. And then if they ever make a meeting, they can be very shocked that, you know, what they think they're talking to is not what they see when they get there. It's very, very frightening, and I think that that parents and educators really need to be aware of this. The other piece, I don't know where Joanne went. Where are you, Joanne? Oh, yeah, okay, I can see you. You know, I think that some of the things that you bring up are really just about good parenting. And you know, I heard about the word no, about parents being able to say no to kids when they're really developmentally too young to be doing certain things. But that even when kids reach an age where, you know, it may be perfectly acceptable for them to, let's say, have a cell phone, for them to be on a social networking site, as a parent, you still have to monitor and see what goes on. I don't know that many kids who are 16 years old who could know 700 people. But I really don't. But some of these kids, and you know, some of this friend thing is like a badge, you know, it's like the big trophy of how many friends you have. But, you know, if I were a parent of a teenager, I would want to know who these friends are. You know, how can you possibly know 700 people? Who's this? Who's that? I would want to be seeing my child's Facebook page, and I would be asking my child, is this your only page, or do you have another one? Because there are kids who put up one page for the parents to see, and another page that they show to the rest of the world. So if I were a parent in this day and age, I would have a lot of questions for my kids. And we do our best through the work that we do in the communities to educate parents. But I really challenge school systems to try to get parents in when they have no choice but to come, or when they're very likely to come, for things like, let's say if you do a parent-teacher night, to do maybe an intro at the beginning where you talk a little bit about these kinds of issues, which are so hugely important. In some districts, they do programs. I've been involved with some alcohol programs where they say to the kids, if any of you are to play sports, let's say in the spring, we're having this forum. You must attend the forum, and you must bring at least one parent with you. I spoke with, the district attorney spoke actually in a community this past fall where I believe we had the better part of 500 people when they used this type of technique to get parents involved. And in so many cases, both parents came, and often middle schoolers came too, and it was a forum about alcohol, about underage drinking and driving, and it was highly successful. But you really have to get the word out to the parents because, as Joanne said, so much of it is not going on here in school, and parents have to step up to the plate and be partners with us and really help to monitor. I think the woman in the back had a comment.
I have a couple of comments. I think the biggest problem that I find is parents today are really not parents. They want to be their child's friend. You cannot be a friend, you need to be a parent first, and then later on in life, you become your child's best friend. Another thing.
I interrupt you just for 1 second. The district attorney, who has a son and a daughter, tells the story so beautifully about how he calls his son his buddy, but he says, you know, but we're really not buddies, we're really not pals. I'm his father, and I have to step up to the plate and be a dad and not be a pal, and that is so important.
I've also found that when you do have an issue, and you do bring it to a parent of a child in elementary school, it's amazing to see how the parent will instantly point the finger at the other child and come to their child's defense and is not even open to hearing what it is you're trying to say to the parent. Another thing, I work before school program on the elementary level, and you'd be amazed at the number of times that parents who have neighborhood issues come to the school expecting the school to solve the neighborhood problem. You can even see that in Providence, what is it, Providence, Rhode Island? Fire all the teachers. At no point in time has anybody said, let's get the parents responsible for valuing education and holding their kids accountable. It's just, it seems as if many parents, not all, today are passing the buck constantly to other people to instill values in their children that they used to instill at home. My parents instilled them in me. I just don't see that happening anymore. I think that's the biggest battle we have to confront.
And one thing that I would say from your comments, that it's so important for parents to model, when it comes to bullying, to model appropriate behavior. And I always say to parents, you know, if you're sitting at your breakfast table and you're talking badly about the woman down the street, or, you know, if you're being a bully, and there are some parents, quite frankly, who come in and bully school staff and bully administrators, and if you are conducting yourself in that way, that's the example you're showing your kids, and you cannot expect your kids to treat people decently if you don't set that example. You know, and very honestly, I say to people in schools, you have to think about how you treat each other. You have to think if you treat each other in a respectful and kind manner. Because very honestly, one too many times I've given this talk in a school system, and I've had people come up to me afterward and say to me, I'm bullied here where I work. Maybe it's a young teacher bullied by some older teachers, or an older teacher bullied by some younger teachers, or people with differences in school issues through association or whatever, that then feel that they're excluded, they're bullying, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, I say both to parent groups and to teacher groups that, you know, we're the role models for these kids. We really have to be very, very careful how we conduct ourselves, because the kids know what's going on. But you're certainly raising some very, very good points. Anything else before we move on?
I think we all recognize the fact that, you know, parents aren't doing what we think that they should be doing. But I also think we need to come up with some ways that we can help them get there. And I'm a firm believer, and I know many of the teachers at my school disagree with me, that like at dances, I think parents should be part of the people that are there chaperoning. Or even if they're not responsible chaperoning, at least be able to be there. I think parents need to know who their kids' social friends are. And even more, if they were more involved in field trips and things like that.
We have to partner with parents. There's no two ways about it. success with some of these very, very difficult issues. We can't do it alone, and I do believe that parents are the key. Another comment, or were you just,
Oh, yeah.
you're just waving your arm? Okay. The changing world of cell phones. I get absolutely amazed at what a lot of these new phones can do. These very enhanced types of phones. Does anyone have the, the apps? All the apps. They are absolutely amazing in terms of, you have the internet right at your fingertips. Again, it should be so positive, but for kids who want to be mean, they have a mechanism right at their fingertips where they can so easily send messages. I just want to talk for 1 second about the texting. First of all, I don't know if it's a problem here in your schools at all, but some of the kids are amazingly adept at texting. They put the phones in their pockets and they text without, people are nodding. They text without looking. Then some of them wear the kangaroo kind of sweatshirt things, and they have a pouch, except they have a phone in the pouch, and they're texting without looking, which I think is a real talent. Then I was doing this presentation. Every place I go, I pick up something new, and somebody raised their hand and said, the girls have so much of an easier time at this than the guys. And I'm like, why? And they said, well, because they have them in their pocketbook, and they lean over, and you think they're getting a pen, or they're getting something in their pocketbook. They're really sending a text message. So,
Or in their rugs.
In what?
In their rugs.
In their
rugs.
In their Uggs. Okay, they keep them in their boots. I gotta use that one. I'm telling you, I learned every place I go, I learn something. So very recently, I was doing a presentation, and a woman, it was for school staff, and a woman said, my daughter was sick, and I had to go pick her up and take her to the doctor during the school day. She said, and all of a sudden I realized that she was texting. So I said to her, who in the world are you texting? And she said, oh, my friends at school. And she said, why are they able to receive texts during the day? And she found out that the texting was going on fairly rampantly with the kids during the school day. As a result, she called, I think that she said her provider was Verizon, and she was able to get the phone shut off. I think she had to pay a certain fee on a monthly basis. But she got the phone shut off between, let's say, 8 o'clock and 3 o'clock, so her daughter was not able to text her. She said to me, please, when you go around and talk to people, let them know that there's a lot of controls that they put on. Just one more thing to say about her, or I'll forget. But the same woman who told me that her daughter is a straight-A student and is a fantastic athlete, and I believe her, when she was talking to the cell phone company, somehow or other must have asked, how many text messages did my daughter send last month? And the daughter had sent 13,000 text messages in a month, which just, I did the math. It was stunning to me. It was absolutely stunning to me. The other thing, while we're on that subject of excessive texting, which I just wonder if it's an addictive behavior with some kids. It is. Yeah, I think it truly is. I now say to parents wherever I go that I advise that they not allow the kids to charge their cell phones in their bedrooms, because I'm hearing these horror stories about the kids in the middle of the night exchanging texts and whatever. Parents can't hear them. Parents think they're sleeping. 3, 4, or 5 in the morning, that this type of thing in many communities goes on all over the place. So now I say to parents, suggestion, don't let your kid recharge in the bedroom. Make the chargers all go downstairs. Erica, you had something you wanted to say?
Well, it's interesting what you were saying about kids texting during the school day and, telling parents about cell phone providers. And I know that it's been mentioned here at the high school, but some of these parents are texting their children during the day. And a lot of times, that's the bigger problem. Like, for the most part, the kids, they may send a text here and there to someone that they're not going to see for like 2 periods, but they all know they're going to see each other at some point in time during the day. Last week, I got an email from a parent that, just wanted to update me about their student. And in the email, the parent said, I've been texting him all day and he hasn't responded. Can you talk to him? To which I said, yeah, no problem, I will, So I, called the kid out of class and I said, hey, I talked to your parent and they've been texting me all day. And the kid just looked at me and goes, we're not supposed to text in school. Exactly. But, you know, the parents a lot of times are the worst culprits than student to student. I mean, kids have classes together, you know, but it's the, you know, texting their mom to get them dismissed, or, you know, or the parents texting them about information during the day.
To remind them to stay after school.
Yeah.
Extra help.
In some districts, I've heard that in classrooms, the kids, as they enter the class, have to surrender their cell phones. You know, put them on a table in the back, and then they can pick them up on the way out again, because the, because it's become such an issue that some of the school systems feel that they can't control. But when I hear something like 13,000 text messages a month, I have to say, I get a little stunned.
When you get a call that says caller unknown, is that something that the phone company has the capability of tracing? I know sometimes, you know, on your, if you ever, anyone has a home line anywhere, a landline, you can have a phone that I might not, you know, there's some, I did this a few years ago.
There's unknown and then there's like private.
Right, but there was also a way that you could hit, like, no, it wasn't star 69, but something if you had, if you got, I did it so long ago, that you were getting, you know, annoying or harassing phone calls, and the phone company, there would be a recording that came on and said, this trace was completed. Now, they didn't tell you as the consumer, but I'm wondering, if you get a call that's caller unknown on your cell phone, it's going to show time-wise when you received that call on your, you know, log of received calls. Is that something that, if you get one of these threatening phone calls, the telephone company has the capability of going in and saying, yeah, we know where that came from?
I believe that the answer is yes. What it would take to get that, whether it would take some type of a court order or whatever, I can't answer you. But I believe that the phone companies certainly have the capability of that. But when you get into the text messages, it's not on a server anywhere. So when kids are texting, it's going from device to device, and it's not necessarily being picked up on a server anywhere. Now, we have, in the district attorney's office, we have a very, very excellent cyber unit, and we work with police departments all over Middlesex County around some of these issues. And certainly, if there's issues in a community, we can step up to the plate and help them with some of this more complicated technologically, you know, it's forensics really, that they're able to do with technology. But as I understand it, a lot more can be done with phone calls than can be done with text messages, because it doesn't sit on a server anywhere.
It's really easy to send a phone, like send something as an unknown caller. You just dial star 67 and do it.
I'm glad for the information.
My friends and I back in college used to prank each other, you know, go see a scary movie and prank each other afterwards, but, and that's how I learned it. It's, you just dial star 67 and dial the number, and it comes up caller unknown, or blocked or whatever.
I don't think a lot of the bullying and the meanness is going on by telephone. I think a lot more of it is going on by instant messages, by texting, and on social networking sites. Again, interesting question. So anyway, cell phones for talking, yeah, definitely they are, but they're used more for a lot of different things, and I think that this touches on some of the things I've mentioned. But again, I think that as educators, that you should really do your best to let parents know that they may have more control over their kids' cell phone use than they realize, in terms of what the companies offer as blocking and as protection against some of the things that can be problematic. Social networking sites. Purpose is to connect people. Facebook has really exploded with older people. I'll tell you a quick story. When I came to the DA's office 3 years ago, the woman who was the head of the cyber unit said to me, "Do you have a Facebook page?" I said, "No." She said, "You need to have one, because you need to understand what's going on with kids that can be risky behavior." So I got an account. I went on Facebook and I opened an account. I graduated from the University of Connecticut, very big school. I did a search for my graduating class in 1971 from the University of Connecticut. How many people do you think 3 years ago from, I don't even know how many were in my class, it was a very large class. How many people would you guess were on Facebook? Take a guess. How? 6,000? I was number 7. So just 3 short years ago, hardly anybody my age was on Facebook. It has really exploded now with people over 40, tremendously. which I think really irritates some of the kids, but it's true.
The other problem is, I mean, you have places like the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed that has a Facebook page now. I mean, it's frustrating because.
Restaurants to make reservations and
But I
stuff.
mean, here's our own Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed with a Facebook page, telling us all that they, all excited about it. And as far as I'm concerned, as an educator, Facebook is only causing me trouble. It's not helping me in a way that it was invented for. So we're sending double messages.
Yeah, I think it certainly can be a positive thing. I feel for myself, I have connected with many of my old high school friends that I belong. We now have a page. We have a Facebook page for our graduating class of high school, and we share pictures, we share information. It makes it so easy to communicate and keep in touch. We're certainly not bullying anybody. None of us are predators that I know of. For us, it's been a very positive thing. But again, I always look at developmental levels with kids, although there certainly are some adults who do things that we wish that they wouldn't. But anyway, the point of this slide is just about the number of Facebook users. The number of United States Facebook users over 35 nearly doubled in 30 days in March of '09, which again, I think there's been such an explosion of people coming onto Facebook, but the largest age group is certainly the 18 to 25-year-olds. And here's my Facebook page, in case there's anyone who has never seen Facebook. That's my Facebook page. Joanne would probably not be happy with me.
No, I have one.
Oh, you have
I
one?
have one. It's the only way I can find out what's going on with our students.
I'm going to get that off quick before it gets on the camera. People friending me that I don't know. I have the highest privacy controls. I never accept anybody that I don't know. And I get friended left and right by people that I don't have a clue who they are. I don't know why they're friending me, but I don't find out. Some people set their privacy controls so that friends of friends can see their stuff. I do not do that. And unfortunately, a lot of the kids do not use the privacy controls at all. And again, there's so much education that is helpful to get out to parents that's a question parents should be asking is what level of controls are you using?
My students talk to me about Facebook a lot, and I found at the beginning of the year when I said to them, you shouldn't have Facebook at all, I didn't get a lot of information from them. But now that I talk about it as a way that, okay, if you're using it responsibly, then it's okay if you're 14, because a lot of my students are 14. But I think they don't understand, like I talked about pictures. If you put pictures on Facebook, that picture is there forever. Facebook keeps your information forever. They used to get rid of it, they don't anymore. They didn't understand that. And then one of my students came in a couple days later and said, hey, I Googled myself and I found my picture on my friend's website and I didn't know that it was there. So you were right, Miss C. So they don't understand that. I think saying to them, no, don't have it, it's bad, is even worse because they're just totally shutting us off. So it's more important to, I don't know how we can talk about it more in like school or something, but because their parents aren't talking to them about it.
Well,
So
their parents don't understand it. And,
yeah.
What you're talking about is tagging. Do you want to explain to people who don't know what tagging a picture is?
Well, anybody can put a picture up of you and tag you in it, and it could not even be a picture of you, and they put a tag on. You can untag yourself from the picture, but if you don't know that it's there.
And that's where some mischief has gone on, certainly with the photoshopping, because somebody could Photoshop your head on a naked image and post it and tag it that it's you, and you may not even know it for the longest time. We always recommend to people, Google yourselves regularly, see what may be out there about you, because you may be very surprised. But I think that you have to do just what you're talking about. But I just want to ask you a question. I'm not you, but since you brought this up, I want to ask a question and just see your reaction. Should staff and students be Facebook friends? Should you become digital friends?
No.
Do you as a district have any policies about any of this? What are your boundaries? What advice, what guidance are you giving your staff? Has it been an issue? Because in some districts it's become an issue. And I'll ask a related question. How about as staff? Should you be friending parents? If parents friend you, should you be accepting? And I'm just throwing these things out as issues I hear as I move around the county.
I had a staff member in our building. I have an older son, and his son is the same age, And my son recently went to Las Vegas with a friend, and he's stationed out in San Diego. And this person that I work with told me all about my son's weekend in Las Vegas and what he did and how he did it, because he went on his son's friend's Facebook, and the kid had put on, and I found that the biggest invasion of my privacy and my son's privacy. I was appalled that this person was telling me about my 23-year-old son and what he did on a weekend that had nothing to do with him.
Welcome to 2010.
I
That's
just
the world
thought,
we
I just
live
thought
in.
that was the ultimate in privacy, like invasion of privacy.
Yeah.
I think that Rosangela right here said it probably at the beginning of the presentation. There are really names.
Out of a class of 25, there was maybe, what, 2?
Really?
They call
That's very
them, they
interesting.
all call each other, and they allow them to call each other by first name. And I mean, I'm, almost 30, and I still address my friends' parents by Mr. and Mrs.
Yeah. Interesting. Did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just want to make a point about the privacy settings. The default isn't very private at all. It's, any picture you put up there, the default is friends of your friends, or anyone can see those pictures.
Yes.
All the privacy settings are basically, what you wouldn't want. And you have to go through and click all the things and make it private. They don't help out by making the default private.
Yes, they've made it easier. I think recently they've made it easier, but you're absolutely right about what you're saying. And again, this is a piece that a lot of times parents don't know the right questions to ask, that you really need to help them. And in some cases, parents should be insisting, if they don't want their kids communicating with people that they don't know, to exercise the highest settings of privacy.
I teach health at the middle school, and I do this activity with the 6th graders where they pick 4 of their favorite activities, leisure time. They just can't all be sports. So, it can include going on the computer, video games, or reading, or drawing, or whatever, and then how it affects their physical health and their mental, emotional health, and their social health. And a lot of kids pick going on the computer, which is fine. I tell them, yeah, of course you can do that. And under mental and emotional health, I say, how does it affect this? And for most things, I'll say, so why do you play hockey? And they're like, I like it, it's fun. I'm like, exactly. It's a stress relief, you like it, it's fun, maybe you learn something, that kind of thing. And under mental and emotional health, I have quite a number of kids who write, sometimes kids can be mean, or kids can write mean things. I'm thinking to myself, this is supposed to be something that you enjoy doing, this is supposed to be fun, but that's how it's affecting your mental and emotional health, is that kids can be mean? That's really sad.
That really is, yeah.
Like, that's what they think of when they do it. I enjoy this, but kids can be mean. I can't do this, but kids can be mean. That's
Joey?
really sad.
I just want to get back to the point. I agree. Children that are 14 years and older, we should be teaching them how to use it correctly. I don't think we should ban Facebook.
Yeah.
I think we need to teach kids, and we need to educate parents about it as much as we can as well, because I do want to point out, in the 3 cases I've been involved in with kids in our school system, it was other students who were courageous enough to come forward and say to someone, this is going on. And we don't want to shut that off, and I want to encourage our students to come forward and say, I saw something, it's not right, it's not fair, we need for you to know that. So I do agree with you, and I hope that we can figure out a way. I know that there's a lot of things in the curriculum that we have to do, but I think that if it's not going to be done at home, we have a moral obligation to teach these kids how to make good decisions.
But Joanne, you hit on, I think, what the number one point is, that you need to have students have a connection with a responsible adult in schools that they will go to if they feel something's not right, and that they don't think of it as tattling, they don't think of the code of silence, that they understand that that's the responsible thing to do. Because as much as we're all talking about the role of parents, which I believe in very strongly, the parents aren't going to see all of this either, and it's the kids. When push comes to shove, it's really the kids that need to step up to the plate when things are going on that aren't right, and tell the responsible adults. So I'm really glad you said that, because that is probably the most key thing about any aspect of school safety. This is my favorite cartoon. that I put out, you know, I think the woman in the blue sweater was saying, you know, like you don't know who on the internet says on the internet, no one knows you're a dog. You know, you think about it, it's really true, so, yes.
I have a question for Superintendent Benton. In the 3 instances where you've had to deal with Facebook problems, do the parents take it serious? Or did they just figure it wasn't that big a deal?
Christine, you can help me with this one. I mean, I think that parents are very receptive,
We had very
embarrassed.
positive response.
Many of them thankfully had their child write an apology to the student or the teacher, but many of them absolutely had no idea what their child was doing. So, I mean, that's the good news. And I think that is good news, that they were, you know, they're cooperative with it.
Thank you.
Margie, could you address the difference between befriending somebody on something like Facebook and something like Gmail? Or do you think they're about the same? Because a lot of classrooms are using Gmail for classroom activities and for kids to talk to other kids.
I think it's the same concept, and I'm not in favor of communicating with anybody that you don't know. Whether it's like you were talking about the Barbie chat room, whether it's a chat room, whether it's AIM, whether it's a social networking site. I mean, I think the issue is about communicating with people that you're not familiar with. But the problem, I think, is that young people want to meet other kids. They love to meet kids from other towns. That's maybe part of being a, you know, I think back in my age, what did we do? We didn't have the internet. How did we meet people? Well, we went to the beach. We loved it when we could go to, I grew up in a city, so when we could go to like CCD dances that incorporated other parishes and whatever, you know, it was exciting to meet kids from other towns. The malls started to pop up. Kids went to the malls and loved to meet kids from other communities. You know, it's just one of the things that kids look the most forward to when they go to college is meeting new people. So they get these opportunities now, abundant opportunities on the internet, and the purpose of social networking sites is to connect people. And that's where you have to really work with kids to put the brakes on about putting themselves in situations that are unsafe. But I just see it as all of the same.
And I'm in your age bracket, and we were taught, don't talk to strangers. And that was the number one, you don't talk to people you don't know.
Well, there's also this thing called letters. We used to have pen pals.
Oh, yeah. But
School
they were-
kids, right. You know, there's places that I go to speak that people raise their hand and say, you know, I'm a 10th grade English teacher. The kids can't write because they're so into the, you know, the text language and whatever. I mean, I'm not on, you know, I'm not right now seeing that myself, but I get anecdotal reports from people about people's writing abilities. The other thing that bothers me, while we're on the subject, bothers me very much, especially, this is now my special education background coming out, especially with so many kids on the autism spectrum. You see all these kids who really need to practice their social skills and practice their interaction face to face, and instead they're gravitating to all these activities that don't give them the kind of, that are isolating. And that's not doing a lot of these kids any good, so, anyway. Oh, that's good. Anyway, a lot of implication for what's going on in the cyber world. And really, it's a fraction of what goes on. Again, I want to keep this as positive as possible. It's really only a fraction of what goes on that presents itself in school as problematic, because there's so much that goes on all the time. But I want to just talk a little bit about some cases. Previously, there's been 3 Supreme Court decisions which favored school districts and clearly established that schools can regulate speech in public schools. And keep in mind now I'm saying in public schools. So that was clearly established. Then we have this tension now with First Amendment rights versus public safety. And there was a case in Pennsylvania that had to do with internet usage. And the student created a fake profile about the high school principal on MySpace using obscene, vulgar, and profane language. The student was suspended as a result for 10 days because he violated the school disciplinary code by engaging in harassment of a school official, administrator. Anyway, the federal court, he appealed it, and the federal court ruled in his favor. The judge said the school had no authority to discipline the student because of the off-campus speech, and the school district appealed, and it's still in the process of being appealed. So, it's really a huge debate about whether or not schools have the authority to discipline online speech regardless of whether the kids were at home or in school. The civil rights advocates feel that the public schools should not be using their authority to monitor what students write at home. Anyway, then there was another case where a young lady named Avery Doniger criticized school officials using inappropriate language about their handling of a music event. And in her internet post, aside from saying some fairly unsavory things about the superintendent and the central office staff, she also sent the students to the wrong place for a school event. And the court then accepted the argument that the schools can discipline students for their off-campus internet posts if they may significantly disrupt the functioning of a school. So that piece of it, if it may significantly disrupt the functioning of a school, is a very important piece of law. However, as I say, it gave us this standard of significantly disrupting the functioning of a school. However, there was a lot in this case that was deliberately vague, it seems. And at this point, the courts are really struggling to figure out the limits of students' First Amendment rights in the digital era. And there are literally cases all over the United States in all levels of court. And it's not definite at all. Ultimately, something will reach the U.S. Supreme Court and become a landmark case. So a lot of it is really up for grabs. However, you do have that one clause to hang on to that seems to be holding up. So anyway, I thought that this quote from a judge in New Haven, Connecticut was really good, that off-campus speech can become on-campus speech with the click of a mouse. Does anyone think that's funny? Do you know what it is? Well, I was doing the slide. First I put the picture, I put a mouse, then I put a mouse, you know. And then someone found this for me, and I thought it was really funny. You're only the second group that's seen it. I don't know if it's good or not. I have to see people's reaction. I say, you know what it is, though. Can you tell me? Anyway, you know, I have to have a little humor in these things. So, as far as, you know, and your superintendent mentions the legislative piece, which is, you know, I think going to be a huge story right now. I'm going to have to keep changing my slides by the day, I think. But there's 37 states that now have legislation about anti-bullying statutes. However, I was told that more than 50% of them don't have a clause about cyberbullying. So they may talk about bullying, but they don't have a piece about cyberbullying. So these are the states that don't have the legislation. However, there is a bill proposed in Massachusetts. There was a bill put forward by the Anti-Defamation League, and it passed the House on February 22nd, and it was going on to the Senate. And Superintendent Benton, you probably know more than I do about this. Something probably came through on the listserv.
Paul Andrews just sent out the latest version of it, so something happened today.
Yeah, and I haven't read.
I didn't read it yet.
The original bill had some components of it that will be very interesting for school districts to implement in terms of reporting, keeping track of and reporting incidents of bullying. I don't know now what went on, what they have or don't have.
I know that was, part of that was taken, one of the requirements was going to be we'd have to report every time there was a bullying incident in school. And all the superintendents wrote and said, you know, this is not the purpose of what we need. We need help for holding kids and parents accountable, not, you know, another task to do. So
Yeah.
I believe that's been taken out.
And I haven't read it, so I'm not sure, but you're probably right. I really have to look at it. I was told that there's a very good chance that by next week, we may have legislation here in Massachusetts, and then obviously I'm going to be updating my slides again, because we'll have some more specific information. But anyway, this will probably help as far as uniformity in Massachusetts, because when you compare communities, there really is a lot of variability about about policies and whatever. And this will give some very, not only guidelines to school districts, but real mandates to school districts. So I do have some guidance from the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents, which I am a member of, and I thought that some of the guidance that they've written is really good. And we need to consider certainly that bullying of any kind will not be tolerated, as it is an attack on human dignity and integrity. Bullies will be punished without regard to status, role, or relationship. Punishment will be fairly applied where warranted after an investigation. Referrals to law enforcement will be made where appropriate, and and they make this comment, which I think is so true, bullying can only be stopped or prevented by a coordinated effort among students, teachers, and administrators. Also, as we've been talking about, parents must accept responsibility for the out-of-school behavior for their child, take steps to control their child, and cooperate with schools when the child is subject to a bullying complaint. And I did put in the comment to be a parent, not a pal, which was mentioned and I think is so very important. So that's some of the guidance that's been given by the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents. This is just a slide about instant messaging being the most common method of cyberbullying. Again, and a lot of this research that I cite has been done by the Massachusetts Aggression Reduction Center, MARC, at Bridgewater State College. Dr. Elizabeth Englander has done a lot of work with us, and Dr. Englander is great. She really is a true expert on bullying. And the other things about bullying is that they can be gateways into criminal behavior. And we've talked a little bit about the phenomenon of sexting. Did you have any of it here in Wilmington? Any sexting going on?
A lot of it last year, there was the trend, and posting, not just sexting, but posting online, photos.
Yeah, I'm going to show something at the end about that, yeah. And then we talked about the distribution of child pornography. I think the research from MARC that 20% of kids in Massachusetts have sexted is kind of shocking. That's a lot of kids.
They grow out of it after a certain age. I mean, it's become like strongest in middle school and then lesser in high school.
I think what I've read was more in the high school, but then as always, the middle school kids start trying to emulate that behavior and, act like they're a little bit older.
When I'm thinking most kids are on family plans, so that means that the person who has the account is an adult in the household.
Mm-hmm.
So is this something that, if I'm the adult and my child is doing something, that it's a phone that's on my account, that I'm ultimately responsible for that distribution of pornography? Because although they're using the phone that is in my name that I've given them to use. I mean, when you look at the law and how to trace that back, what's the culpability? I mean, I'm responsible for that child until he or she is 18.
Well, I always say I'm not a lawyer and I don't play one on TV. I work with a lot of very, very excellent lawyers, and I could ask that question. I would think that it would be hard pressed for you to get prosecuted for something like that.
I just think, but if I provide alcohol in my home,
Absolutely.
and
you're not even there.
and I'm not even there, if my kid has a, so I am responsible down the line.
Yeah, I see why you're asking that question, and I would doubt it, but you're making a good point, and that's a question I will ask.
In
back
terms
at
of
work.
having parents step up to the plate.
Yeah, if you give me your phone number, I'll get back to you and give you an answer to that question. I would rather check that out.
I'm not personally concerned. Mine's in her 20s, and whatever it is now. But
Well, I want to know the answer, so.
I'll try to get an answer for you in a community. It came up, this is not this but it came up in the context of another community where we were doing a presentation and a police officer was there, and the police officer said to the parents, if there's ever this kind of image on your cell phone, do not delete it, bring it down to the police station. And a mother raised her hand in the back of the room and said, if I take it and I bring it down to the police station, am I then in possession of child porn? Mm-hmm. And if I remember correctly, the parent was assured that that indeed would not happen, but it's still, someone else in the back said, well, I don't care, I'm not taking the chance.
Yeah.
So you're raising an issue that I have heard before, and I certainly can find out. Anyway, sexting really made national news. I just think kind of the more we talked about it last year, the more the kids did it for some reason. I don't think we're talking about it anymore and they're not doing it as much, or maybe we're not talking about it because they're not doing it as much.
Well, I think that you said a good point. There was kind of a wave, it went last year. And it's interesting that as far as we know from the news, some kids in Billerica, and I think they were the boys down toward the Cape, they were held accountable and there were criminal charges, I believe. So it's interesting that when you talk about holding kids accountable and having enough leverage, maybe if enough kids start getting in trouble, going to court on the cyberbullying, maybe that's the deterrent. I don't know.
Well, the problem is if you make that one mistake, you're stuck with being a sex offender for the rest of your life.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I believe in our county that rather than severely prosecute kids on a first-time mistake, that's something that will really tremendously affect the rest of their lives, that we use such tactics as diversion. This talks about, right now bullying and cyberbullying aren't crimes. They may be crimes in another day or two, but they're not right now. However, excuse me, something can pass over a line into what's called criminal harassment, which is a crime. And I put a definition here, but if anybody ever suspects that they are being harassed or that a student that you have is being harassed, you need to certainly let your administration here know and probably also communicate with the police department, because harassment is serious. And I'm sure you have policies here in Wilmington when it comes to harassment. Anyway, certainly the school has a big responsibility about bullying, that's for sure. Bystanders are extremely important because a lot does not take place in front of you. When students observe bullying and do nothing, they tacitly support bullying. And I think that fact is really very important. I do think that a lot of the bullying is easier when the kids are younger, to work with bystanders and get kids to step up, because more of the bullying when the kids are younger is physical. By the time they get into high school, so much of what is going on has to do with relationships, it's relational. And that can be much more difficult for students to intervene about.
I think, Margie, that last bullet, when students observe bullying and do nothing, they tacitly support bullying. And I think you could substitute for students, adults, teachers, administrators, and the superintendent 2 weeks ago brought a gentleman from the Anti-Defamation League, and he said something that has really made an awful lot of sense to me. And he said, we hear an awful lot about the term zero tolerance. He said, we'd like to think about using the term zero indifference. And it's pretty powerful for me that I'm not going to be indifferent when I see or overhear something or observe something about someone being bullied, that I'm going to intervene. And I think it's also a good message, perhaps, for our students to step in and suggest to a friend that that's not cool behavior, so that we're not going to be indifferent to it. So I think that's meaningful for me, certainly.
Yeah, I agree. That's probably the most important piece, because again, we try so hard in school districts, we can't see everything. There's no way that a lot of what the kids do that's really mean is going to be done right under our noses. It's not going to happen. And a lot of the parents aren't privy to what goes on either. Anyway, I talked about some options for bystanders, and kids really have to be taught. This is not something that they will necessarily naturally do, and it's something that kids can certainly be worked with to develop strategies. And the code of silence, I think, can be a huge problem. A pervasive sense among adolescents that telling grown-ups another student is in pain or may pose a threat to others violates an unwritten but very powerful principle. And in some cases, in some cultures, in some climates, in some school districts, the code of silence is stronger than in other places. And that's something that you really have to work with the kids about, and I think you have to start working with them at very early grades to help develop a sense that they have responsibility for each other, to care about each other, and to intervene, or at the very least let a responsible adult know when something's going on that isn't right. And bystanders really have the power to drastically reduce bullying at school. They need to be empowered to act, and it sounds like your presentation, that whatever you had from the ADL was right on target. And again, this is just a slide about how sometimes with the younger kids, it's just more clear-cut and easier for them to intervene. So you certainly need a whole community and a whole school effort. Positive climate is just huge, and it really permeates all aspects of the school. You can't just come in and do a one-shot half an hour, some type of a session with guidance counselor coming into a class and doing something on bullying once a week and expect it to be effective. It really has to become ingrained in the whole fabric of your school and has to be worked on a day-in, day-out basis. Again, this talks about the role of the parents, as we've talked about, very, very important. I do believe that parents are an untapped resource, and there's so much that parents need to be educated about the cyber world, particularly about things like Facebook, that they just don't. They know so little. Not all parents, some parents know far more than I do, but when I go out and speak, there's a lot of parents that really express how little they know about this, and because they know as little as they do, they may stick their heads in the sand and not want to learn more about it. And you can monitor your child on things like Facebook without being terribly savvy as far as using cyber. So anyway, I just would like to play before we end, and then I can answer any questions. I have just 2 quick PSAs I'd like to play for you. Here's some contact information.
Hey, Sarah.
Oh my gosh, she's so cute. How do you know him?
Oh, I'm gonna do it like I taught you. Welcome to the cafe, Sarah. Let's go!
Dude, that's Sarah. Sarah in the pink shirt. That's the girl I was telling you about. Oh, that's Sarah?
Theater 2 on your left. Hey, Sarah. What color underwear today?
Hey, Sarah. So when are you going to post something new?
Anything you post online, anyone can see. Family, friends.
See you later, Sarah.
Even not so friendly people. Think before you post.
Well, go Wildcats. Aren't you Wildcats
Yes, we
here?
are.
Once you post your image online, you can't take it back. Anyone can see it. Family, friends, anyone. Remember, think before you post.
I great to show the kids. I also love to show them to parents because parents kind of interact with it. It's kind of true.
Are they actually being aired in TV?
Yes, I have seen them on TV. I want to say I've seen them on Fox. On YouTube, definitely. I often just Google Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and I get a lot of my material from there, but the Ad Council also carries these, and they're very easy to download and show to kids, and at the very least, I think it helps make the kids think. So anyway, there is a evaluation sheet in your folders, and if you would fill that out, please, and hand it in to me before you leave, I'd greatly appreciate it. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions or stay and talk if there's anything.
I just wanted to thank you all for coming. I want to thank Margie. Margie did a very nice job.